Hello, hello, everyone. All right, we're going to kick off here. My name is Ryan Moore. This morning, we have innovative sound strategies for immersive creators happening in the Dome Fest West Fulldome Forum virtual house. It's cool to see a whole bunch of you this morning, this April 10th. Yes, it is April 10th. Can you hear? It's suddenly April. That's how it feels like to me. I don't know about the rest of you. All of you are in for a massive treat today. Essentially, this is where I think I call on Monica Bulls, our incredible host. Our forum today is all about essentially the creator side of sound. Now, last month, our last forum was focused on essentially the hardware side of things. What do you need to think about? Speaker arrays, all that kind of stuff. This is a session about the creators, about the tools, about the people actually working in the space. You're going to see a lot of different interfaces, and it's going to be really, really exciting. You're in for a huge treat. And this is where I want to introduce Monica Bulls. She's our guest host for this forum, and we're super, super excited. She's been a part of the IPS Sound Innovations Committee and essentially leading a lot of great feedback on sound. Monica, are you feeling stoked this morning?
I'm feeling stoked, Ryan.
There we go. There we go. Speaking that Cali lingo.
Well, I'm from Colorado, so and grew up in the snowboarding community there. So I got it.
You know how to speak. Well, awesome. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little tiny bit and why you're excited to talk about the subject today. And then we've got three fantastic panelists, and then one that unfortunately has some voice issues. So I'll kind of throw things over to you.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Anna Monte can't be with us today because she just was having some health issues, and we're really going to miss her because she's got some great things to say, but I know she's going to be here in spirit. And we have three amazing panelists that are still here to join us, and I think are going to be offering us some really cool insights into kind of the creative elements and the mixing elements of producing audio for domes. So I have a little slideshow that I'm gonna share here in a second. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So that's me. If you want to reach out to me, that's all my contact info. You can check out my websites and all of that. Feel free to take a photo or something. But I'm Monica Bulls. And so I've actually been working in kind of the dome space for since 2011, when we first gained access to our local planetarium in Denver, Colorado, through this group called Signal to Noise Media Labs, where we just would go in there and play with their system. I come from an audio engineering background. They had a 15.1 surround system. And at that point in time, there weren't really a lot of tools to mix for 15.1. So we kind of were just figuring it out as we went. Kind of through that, just got into this whole world of spatial audio. Got to go kind of do a residency thing down at the Cube at Virginia Tech, which is a 140 channel speaker array there. Worked up in Montana at this place called Tippett Rise, where we were recording classical music for 9.1 Aura 3D. Have done a lot of other kind of projects and just, explorations into spatial audio, and just really kind of dove into this world. I've also been producing and creating and, working on the audio for different, more live full dome productions since about like 2012, 2013. This is one kind of group of us did and presented at Immersive back, I think, in 2016 called Involution. I worked on this project called Intopia with Janet Feder, who is a prepared guitarist, where we did kind of a cool visual background, and she would play kind of guitar, and we'd in real time process her instrumentation and spatialize it and kind of control it in different ways. Created this piece called Orbits, which it uses data from Venus and Earth as they're moving around the sun and sonifies it and creates an instrument that I'm able to play kind of in real time. I did this piece called Collision, which was a composition for cello and violin and electronics that was then presented in the dome. It's been performed at a few different domes as part of a kind of collaboration from the Playground Ensemble and based out of Denver. I've also done stuff not for domes. This was kind of my most recent production that I worked on called Elegies Enigma with aerial cellist Cellista, doing kind of in a black box theater space with a 40.4 channel audio system and kind of an AI-driven production exploring what happened or kind of why, a society suddenly disappears. So that's just kind of some of my artistic background and some of the things that I've worked on there. I'm also, oh, we're not going to play that. I'm also co-host of the Immersive Audio Podcast, where we talk about all things immersive audio, and we have a lot of different people. It's not that kind of come on that are in the immersive audio space. It's not specifically for just full dome stuff, but it's really if you want to keep kind of your pulse of like what's going on in immersive audio as a field as a whole, definitely check that out. We've got a lot of great people that have kind of been a part of that. Anna Monte was kind of, I think, one of the original ones too. So you miss her here, you can go hear her on the Immersive Audio Podcast. I also co-host these NOTAM spatial audio meetups through NOTAM, which is the Norwegian Technological Arts and Media Center based out of Norway. And so those are all online, and we usually bring in some different people, to just kind of talk about stuff in spatial audio, but then also have space and time for kind of the community to connect. And it's been a really amazing way to just kind of bring people together within the spatial audio community. So one of the other initiatives that I've kind of worked on most recently, specifically for the Full Dome community, is as Ryan mentioned, I'm part of the IPS Sound Committee, and we worked on the Sound Experience Survey at this past kind of 2 years or so. And we presented some of the findings at IPS this summer in Berlin. And we did 4 different surveys that were kind of oriented towards different people within the Full Dome community. And I just kind of want to focus on a few of the things we found from the Audio Creators and Engineers survey, because I think that's going to kind of, format a little bit of this conversation today, or kind of a lot of this will play into that. So we had about 20 individuals that responded to the survey. Approximately 50% of those respondents work independently, and they represented kind of diverse roles in the audio field, with the largest groups identifying as sound designers, audio engineers, or audio producers. So most of them we asked, if they mixed for what kind of surround and immersive formats that they mixed for. 76% are mixing for surround sound. Ambisonics was at like a 65%. And we had, and then Dolby Atmos is at 59%. Wavefield synthesis, 24%, other 59%. So there's, kind of a lot of different mixture of what people are mixing for. And then, what DAWs do you use? You have Pro Tools kind of leading at 60%, Reaper at 50%, Nuendo at 20%. But we're going to have, some demonstrations, I think, from our presenters today that'll show you the diverse uses of digital audio workstations within kind of being able to create. Plugins, softwares, and tools. We have kind of a mixture of what people are using. I'd say other is 55%, kind of what people that weren't ones we necessarily mentioned. But Dolby Atmos and DRVR are kind of leading at 40% of the respondents. So it's going to be interesting to hear from our participants today what sorts of things they use for their design. And, so this is so kind of to end, one of the questions we asked is, what changes do you hope to see to strengthen immersive audio production for Full Dome in the future? The changes our respondents would most likely like to see are more standards, 90%. I can attest that that's complication of working in this field for sure. Better budgets at 68%. I think that's a struggle for a lot of people. More accessibility to facilities at 58%. More buy-in from producers and institutions, 47%. More community for practitioners, 47%. So I'm going to end it there, and I'm going to bring on some of our other panelists so that they can kind of talk a little bit about who they are and some of their workflows and what they do. So I think first up we have Alejandra Rios. Would you like to come on and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you approach audio in dome production?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm Alejandra. I am a sound designer and sound artist from Mexico. I am based in Berlin right now. And I worked at a spatial sound studio called Monom here in Berlin. And yeah, I basically do kind of like mixed media productions. I do a lot of sound design for film and audiovisual works. Right now I'm using Monom a lot, our studio, to compose a lot of different spatial pieces. And in Monom, I kind of like started getting involved into the spatial sound community first and foremost because of the dome. Actually, I started just doing more of an immersive nature kind of pieces because of my project, which is called iSpread, where I used ambisonics, and it was my first time using ambisonics, and it was challenging at first, but it was very interesting. But I know that there are a lot of different technologies that we can also use. The technology that I use primordially now for composition, for spatial composition, is 4D Sound, which is the software that we use in Monom Studios. And I like to think about spatial audio as a way to kind of elevate storytelling and to think about how we can integrate new cutting edge audio technologies into the way we tell stories, no? And 4D Sound is really interesting because it is a very intuitive instrument that is capable of producing sound holograms in the space, no? And it helps you think about space as an instrument in itself, as a tool for composition and for storytelling, and to think about how we, for example, place sounds in space, and where we place them says a lot of different things, no? If we decide to place something, for example, in the dome, if we decide to place something specifically at a certain height, it is going to tell something different rather than we put it on, ear level, no? So these type of things are super interesting to me conceptually, no? So to talk a little bit more in depth about my project, which is iSpread, I think I'd like to talk about the conceptualization of it in a sonic way, because this is the most important thing, I think, about my research in this project. So firstly, to talk about the concept, the premise is that based on scientific experiments, the project explores the possibilities of trees as bioluminescent entities, which means that they can glow at night. And it is also the result of like a transmedia and philosophical exploration of the concept of synthetic biomes, or basically referring to the agency human beings have on modifying ecosystems and genetically altering organisms. So this idea came through because I just was reading a scientific paper about how they were exploring the possibilities of genetically altering certain species of plants to make them bioluminescent, no? So injecting samples of bioluminescent fungi into trees or certain species of plants to kind of like see what would happen, no? And the whole idea was the whole objective of this experiment was to reduce, or the whole thing was, how can we reduce the carbon imprint that we're causing in the planet, no? And how can we reduce the energy consumption at nights? And they came up with this crazy idea of using trees to produce light. If trees were bioluminescent, they could produce light. So my project came with this big question about how would hypothetical environments sound and look like. And that led me to the conceptualization of the sound, which was basically the first part was that I encountered this area of study or area of technique, which is called sonic tomography of trees. And what they do is that they use ultrasound to penetrate into a tree stump or a tree trunk to kind of like understand if there are cavities inside of the tree and see if the tree, to kind of examine the inner health of the tree. And I found that super interesting because this meant that trees can be resonant and the concavities lead to resonances that can be then examined to see what this means, no, for the life of this tree. So that was the first thing, that in this sense, trees can be vibrating entities and can respond to external stimuli. For example, arborists use a hammer, like a rubber hammer, to kind of hit softly on the trees and auscultate and listen to the tree for these resonances and these concavities. So that was the first thing. And the second part of the research was a technique in sound synthesis called physical modeling synthesis. And to put it just very simply, it's a type of synthesis where you can extract the material and physical qualities and properties of real objects or acoustic instruments in order to model their sounds, resonances, and harmonics. And this would enable you to have like a digital version or a digital acoustically accurate version of the physical instrument. So this approach lets you describe the physical structure of a system, which I found very interesting, no? And the model is usually a series of mathematical rules which describe how individual parts interact. So that's the basics of physical modeling synthesis, is to understand what the resonator is and what the exciter is. So resonator means vibrating body or sound object. And exciter is basically the thing that makes the vibrating body sound. So with this framework, I decided to think about trees then as vibration, as resonant bodies full of cavities and full of irregular densities that could hypothetically be mapped to create a musical experimental instrument. So my core question here was, how would our realities be perceived if we thought about living beings as vibrating, sounding subjects? What if we could potentially or poetically apply the principles of physical modeling to systems that are alive? And so the result is the composition itself. And here's where I'm going to show you my session in Reaper, which leads to my workflow. And so, share sound. Okay, so here we go. This is my session in Reaper for the composition. And so to help you understand a little bit better what is going on here, I have different types of sounds. I have my sounds from my experimental musical instruments made from trees. And basically the way that I accomplished this and the way that I created these instruments is through physical modeling, is through a software called Modalis, which is made by IRCAM. And it's a software that enables you to use 3D models of trees, 3D models of musical instruments or other objects, and put it into the software so the software can then analyze and produce kind of like a model of the physical object with its sonic properties and everything. But what I did was use real 3D models of trees and kind of like went from there. It's a programming language software, so you kind of need to understand a bit of programming languages in order to be able to do this. But I would say it's quite easy and straightforward to use. And it's a Max MSP software, so if you wanted to try Modalis out, you need Max MSP. So first I used Max MSP. That was the first thing, to create my samples from the experimental musical instruments made from trees. And once I had those samples from trees, from the instruments, I moved on to Ableton Live, which is this other DAW that it's my primordial, I think, software that I use for everything. I really like it. And there I created the whole composition and the sound design. So first Max MSP, then Ableton Live. And when I had the composition and the arrangement, I went to Reaper. So in Reaper, I made the spatial mix. Because I think Reaper enables you to use like more channels. So for me, it was just the easiest to use Reaper, and I think it's very straightforward and a DLW that is very easy to use and very intuitive in the sense. So basically I just have like different groups. I group together the different sounds. So I have my tree sounds right here, the tree synths, which I called, which all are mapped into an encoder, which is this one, which is the ADA multi-encoder. And here I have, for example, some automation that for the spatialization. So some parameters of like heights and movements are automated here. You will here in a bit. But yeah, so this is, for example, the encoder for the tree synths, and then I have another one for another type of sound, which is, for example, the vocal effects, which I was also using voice in this composition. So the composition is basically has like a lot of different elements, not only the tree synths, but it has voice. It also has some, instrumental pads. It also has some other type of sounds. Like I used a contact mic to record some type of like sounds from the trees. I put the contact mic on tree trunks and then on the leaves, and just experimented a lot with this type of more organic sounds. And then I have another encoder for, these more organic sounds. So I have my groups right there. And that's basically how I just did it. And then I have just like a master bus where I'm kind of like, where I would just, sorry, it keeps changing the screen. I don't know why, but yeah. So this is kind of like my workflow. If I'm using Ambisonics, because I usually use more 4D sound right now, which is another these other DAW, but these were the encoders that I used for my project in Dome. And yeah, it's a pretty straightforward session, I would say. As for the mixing, I think it was a bit challenging because some things, it's a whole different thing to mixing headphones spatially than go mix on site in the Dome. It sometimes can sound really different. But yeah, it's all about dynamic range and being careful with the positionings of the sounds in space in order to create balance and yeah, have a little bit of more, be aware of the space as in, a creative tool for composition. So I think I'm gonna play a little bit of it and then we can move forward. Yeah, that was a small snippet of the composition, but yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show, but I'm sure we'll elaborate a bit more in the conversation with everyone else. But yeah, that was a little bit about myself. I think spatial sound is all about a different way of storytelling, using space as an instrument for composition and creative engagement. And yeah, I'll pass the mic to you, Monica.
Well, thank you so much. And I wanted to note too, Alejandra's composition. For her, it was for a Fulldome called film called Ice Spread, and that won the best sonic experience for Fulldome UK. So it's definitely a really interesting kind of sound experience piece for anyone who hasn't heard it. Maybe you'll get to see it if you come to Dome Fest West or see it. You can specifically listen. So, but thank you so much, Alejandra.
Thank you, Monica.
I think next up, I'm going to call Benoit Dam.
Hello. So I just take it from there. Okay, so I'm Benoit. I've been working in sound and post-production for the last 30 years. Been doing Dome for the last 10 years. I was fortunate enough to meet Philippe Baylock and Sébastien Gauthier, who offered me this challenge of working in this different environment, this whole new beast. I do mostly traditional post work. So it's a lot of documentaries, a lot of fictional stuff. I also do some podcast, 3D podcasts, which we record and we record and we mix in binaural, and all the post is done in binaural. So that's also my experiences in immersive, which is not Dome itself. So maybe I can just share with you my screen. So I come mostly from a 5.1 perspective. 5.1 is what's used in most of post work nowadays for TV and cinema, although there's some other more immersive formats that are, you know, getting there, like Dolby Atmos. But I mean, still about 90% of what I do is in 5.1. So moving from 5.1 to 17.3, which is the format that I work in at the Montreal Planetarium, which is pretty much my main venue where I work for. It's, you know, it's more speakers, it's more more problems or more opportunities, but also, you know, you have to tame the beast a bit more. So the way this is done it's been done in the installation of the Montreal Planetarium is that you have 2 arrays of 8 speakers, which are in the yellow section that you see, they're pretty much full range speakers that are at the top of the dome, and the one that's called Z or Z is really on top. It's like the voice of God that you have there, and the ones that you see in the blue are fairly smaller speakers, about the size of, you know, shit boxes or just a bit more than that. They're not full range and they're not really they don't have a lot of output, but they're at ear level for the people sitting in the theater. And you have also 3 subs. I generally don't use that much of the smaller speakers for different reasons. One of them being that they're not full range and they tend to distort a bit. They don't handle that much volume before they start crapping out. And also, they one of the problems, or one of the main thing that you have to work with in a dome is all the reflections that you have that you don't have in a in a normal theater or mixing studio, where everything is damped, everything is really they have some sort, very strict protocols about what how the sound is handled and how the speakers, and also we try to eliminate all the reflections and all the reverb coming from the room, because you don't want to hear the room, you want to hear your mix and you want to hear what's going on in the speakers. The dome in itself is a bit more difficult for that, because of the shape, and also because of the material that is being used for the screen, which is aluminum. It's perforated, and there's some damping on the other side, but still it's a relatively reflective material. So you have to handle a lot of things bouncing around that you don't necessarily want to. So it's the pleasure dome, but there's some bit of pain that goes with it. So like I said, the physics of the dome, also you have to be very careful about everything that you send to the subs. There's a lot of rolling, or it has a tendency. You don't have to give it a lot of volume to get a lot of result and a lot of presence. Also, it's interesting seeing that the three panelists work with different DAWs. I'm personally a Pro Tools guy because of all the rest of the work that I do. It's a tool that I know very well, that I've been using for quite a while, and also that I invested a lot of money in it. Is it the best to do what I do in the Dome? Probably not. But for the reasons that I mentioned, and also the other stuff that I'll be dealing with is the rest of the deliveries that have to be done in the rest of the post world, it works better for me working with Pro Tools. So also, there's no real standards, and that's something that Monica said before with her the survey that she did. And so, I mean, I'm working in a 17.3 environment, but I don't know how many other planetariums are using it. And we end up exchanging more 5.1 material from one planetarium to the other than any other stuff. But it also defeats the purpose a bit of immersive sound, because 5.1, although it's interesting, it's not as performant as other immersive formats like ambisonics or binaural for that matter, or anything that has a lot more of speakers and sound sources. And also, there's no, in the reality of the planetarium, there's no real sweet spot to work from when you mix. And that's also something else that you have to take into account. In the studio, you have the sweet spot that has been designed behind the console, and you work from that perspective and from that point, and you know exactly what you're dealing with. And again, everything's been measured, everything's been tamed and prepared for that thing. That's something that you don't get in the Dome. You have to move around. You have to make sure that the decisions that you make when you mix are good for people in the more towards the center of the planetarium or more to the back. And also at the Montreal Planetarium, to make it even more difficult, they have two different venues. One of them is totally omni, so you've got seats, I think we saw it before, we've got seats all around, and the other theater is doesn't have any seats, so it can handle omnidirectional and unidirectional films. So that's also something that you have to take into account. So when I mix, I move around, I sit in different spots, I make some adjustments regarding what's going on, what I'm hearing. So I'm building my tools as I work, and that's also something that's a bit of a challenge, but I'm getting there. I'm hacking Pro Tools more and more to make it do exactly what I want it to do and what I need it to do. But the research and development is done on the project time, so sometimes you have the budget to do it and sometimes not so much, and that's also a difficulty. Also, I don't generate my own project. I always work on something else, on something that someone else is directing. So I have to also to take that into account and make sure that I realize the vision of what they have in their head sonically. You have to deal also with a lot of picture revision, especially if you're dealing with a lot of CGIs. Normally, when you get to the mix stage, every day you've got a new version that you have to either conform or add some missing stuff because they added some new elements, or they're refining some elements. And I have also to be able to make sure that my project are going to be easily deliverable to other venues, like I said. So the what I make, the decisions that I make have to take that into account. And like I said, there's also the omni versus unidirectional. It's not rare that we do a show in one format, where we generally start with the omni, but at one point they'll do a more unidirectional, because some planetariums are more unidirectional, and that means repanning stuff and making sure that all the sounds follow the image. So the way that I approach the work, the creative work, in a way it's not different from doing documentary, because it's mostly scientific stuff that I do, because of the nature of the client, which is the planetarium. But you have to balance in between, being as true as possible and as genuine as what's happening, what sound make, or what environment you are in. So make sure that you do your research and you try to be as authentic as possible. And also there's a balance in between that and giving a full immersive experience and a cinematic experience. So sometimes we take a bit of more some liberties on what we do, but we try to keep it as a minimum. I use multiple source materials and some scientific recordings or stuff that I do myself while recording. I go out and build my own sounds and also work from sound banks. I did there's a lot of live action that's been done in Montreal also. So it has its own défi. It has its own way of working. We'll do more Foley on that stuff. And sometimes I do some animation, like the excerpt that I will be watching in a while, and then there's a lot of CGI, and the mix. You really have to do it inside the theater itself because of all the stuff that I said before regarding the acoustics and the just the sheer size of the screen and the experience, and making sure that your pan are nicely done and your environment is coherent with what you see. And that's it for that part. We can now have a listen to a small excerpt of one of the, I guess it's the latest show that I did, the last, it's Total Eclipse. And it's Raiders of the Lost Sleep, I think it's called in English. And let's have a listen.
Dear cosmic dreamers, join us on this extraordinary adventure through space and time. Now you have become eclipse chasers, and maybe you'll witness an even rarer event, the one where I fall asleep. Off to Earth and off to bed. My head. This ship flies as smoothly as ever. Well, Joss, that certainly was an interesting landing.
Thank you.
I can't see a thing. Is this a total eclipse? There must be an exit or a light switch around here somewhere.
Oh?
Joss, is that you? Did you find something?
A button. I like buttons. I am going to press the button.
Oh! Well done, Joss! Where are we? Looks like... Oh! Joss! We're in the middle of Tokyo! Beautiful city, I can't wait to visit!
Oh, another button.
Joss? I don't like this. If you could avoid touching that one until...
And there you have it. So, Monica, back to you.
Awesome. Well, we have a quick question in the chat about this that I'll just read out. Says, has the Foley sound in this project been spatialized using ambisonics to synchronize with the visuals in a 17.3 audio system, or?
Actually, no. I haven't. Ambisonic doesn't really work with the setup of Montreal Planetarium. I've been hacking actually the panners, the Dolby Atmos panners that you have in Pro Tools, and reassigning the top level to have just one output instead of four, as it's in the normal format. So it's basically a 9.1.4 format that I managed to crap into 8.3.1. So that's how I've used it. So it's all point source panned, but I end up using also the size to make some objects occupy a bit more space, and there's some reverb going on it also.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's cool to hear how everybody, again, approaches these things differently and kind of the different solutions that we found, the kind of hacking solutions that we found.
I'm a bit old school in that matter.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Benoit. I think that's a great kind of from more like mix engineer and, kind of perspective and trying to understand, that world. And so next up we have Johannes Kraus. I don't know if I pronounced your last name fully correctly, so feel free to correct.
I'm really impressed. You did a really good job. Not many people do that.
All right. Well, Johannes, so give us a little bit of about your background and kind of your workflow.
All right. Here we go. Yeah. So as we already heard, my name is Johannes Kraas, and I am working in the Fulldome scene for I think about 15 or 16 years now. It's been quite a long time, and we did a ton of Fulldome shows, running in a lot of countries. I think on almost every continent. No, not every continent, but I think we're getting there. So what got me started going into Fulldome was my first project with the visual artist Rocco Helmchen, who's also based in Germany. By the way, I'm based in Germany here. And after we did a first little film together, I got the dome bug. I got infected, and I wanted to work in the dome over and over again. And I think I can also share my screen right now. Let me see. This should do it. Yeah, right. So yeah, that's just also my contacts. what I did is I'm not gonna show everything, I guess, but we worked and I worked for quite a few companies and brands, and we got our shows shown at a lot of festivals. This is just a selection, I guess, the ones I could remember. Yeah, and we're lucky enough to win the one or the other award together. But I also do other stuff. I work at live venues. I do music live. I do art installations. I do radio plays, something that is very popular in Germany. I produce a few podcasts. I do a little bit of Foley and VR, but I think most of the stuff that I do is working for planetariums, and that's because I just love that. I feel like I can explore all my creative ideas best when I work for Fulldome. It's a lot of freedom most of the projects give me, like musically, sonically, and also this is something that changed over the years. I feel there is now a focus on audio in the Dome. When I started, Fulldome was just coming up like 15, 16, 17 years ago. The first planetariums in Germany got a Fulldome system. And so what happened is everybody was just focused on the video. It was which projectors are we going to use? How are the visuals going to look? How do we eventually get to 4K or stuff like that? And the audio was just there. It was... I had the feeling that nobody is really paying attention to how it sounds. But over the years, and especially in the last like 3, 5, 4 years, I feel a shift. And I really like to feel that shift. It's not only necessarily that the domes install spatial audio systems, but audio in general is gaining in importance. People feel, and the planetarians and the dome people feel how important audio is. And now that the sound conquers like the third dimension and is really everywhere, I even love it more to work in a dome environment. So Rocco and I worked on a ton of shows. It's a lot. I can't even remember all the short films we did together, but we did 4 feature-length music shows. But what we also did is, like I said, produce a ton of short films. And before we get into the Fulldome clips, I might even be able to show you a few examples of the stuff we did. I have multiple windows open here. I hope you can see them. If anything is not working, please interrupt me. But we, like, for example, we went to Las Vegas and filmed a series of films there. We had the opportunity to, so I'm talking about Rocco and I now, Rocco and me, and we traveled through Switzerland to explore the beauty of that country in 3 short films. And I think I can just show you a few seconds of, for example, this Switzerland clip. Yeah, great start. Okay, yeah, that's just a little snippet. Then we did the trailer for the centennial of the planetarium because, it just turned 100 last year.
Awaken curiosity about the unknown. Expand horizons. And inspire us for our own lives. They address the biggest questions: where we come from and who we are. Planetariums promote the understanding of global connections
and so on. It felt great. You saw a lot of shows you might know already, and it felt great to see them all coming together to do this little looking back on the planetariums and the Fulldome films that we have seen in the last years. And then we did these 4 shows, and this is our core stuff. That's the thing we love most. We love to do these music shows with a scientific background, so to say. It's we always love to explore creatively, but then also base the stuff in astronomy or science. And we always say you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, but you might also learn something. So, for example, Chaos and Order is about visualizations of math and dimensions. Once Upon Our Reality asks the question, what is the nature of our reality? In Flow we explore time, basically, and in our newest show, Impossible Space, we just take a creative look into space through an artistic lens, so to say. So we explore planets, even unknown planets, and we experiment with AI and just fly through space and explore the things that always have fascinated us. And the goal is to create excitement, to ignite a spark in the viewer, and that so that you go home and you have seen something that makes you want to know more about it, basically. So you investigate yourself, and you have that little spark ignited to find out what it's all about, because these are all topics and themes that interest us ourselves. Maybe I can also show you an example of, for example, Impossible Space. This is a track where we just did a soundscape, or I did the soundscape for this. And one of the other goals we have is to tie the visuals with the audio as tightly together as possible, and to like create worlds that don't exist, but that you can feel and explore emotionally, maybe, so that you feel, especially in a dome, that you are really in this world, even if it doesn't really exist. Yeah, okay. So far, I think this is what drags you into the immersion. Like, if it makes sense to you sonically, what you see and what you hear, it connects, then you get the immersion. Otherwise, your brain might disconnect and feel like something is off here, and it doesn't get lost, as we all want the viewer to get lost in the experience. Yeah, maybe another example would be the sizzle reel we did recently, if I find it. Yeah, this is this. Yeah, I'm just gonna play a few seconds of this. Okay, yeah. So I think this is why I feel incredibly lucky to work with Rocco Helmchen, because the thing that makes the visuals and the music unite is partly is because he actually lets me sit down in the director's chair in the editing room and let me sometimes twist and turn a few of his visuals. Like I can build speed ramps into certain scenes, and I can maybe rearrange a few scenes if the project allows that, and if the story is not that's straightforward. Sometimes I like when I come to him and have a piece of music composed, and I say, see, this scene would go best if it can go here. And sometimes I think by now he trusts me enough that I don't ruin his incredible work, but sometimes he lets me do it. And I think maybe I can show a little example of what I mean here. Or did I prepare that? What do we have here? Oh yeah, here we go. So the clip I'm going to show you is a great example of that. The original video was just these objects that are coming into the picture in a few seconds. They just moved in one steady pace, at one steady speed, and I had a track with a bass with a kick drum. And I felt it would look cool if they stopped briefly anytime the kick drum comes in. And so he let me do it, and this is the result. Yeah. So that's just one tiny example, and I'll show you more later, I guess. But if we have the time, I'd also go into my Nuendo session briefly to show you the stuff I'm working with. We also could do that later if Monica thinks that's better.
Why don't you just quickly kind of go through and show your workflow, and then we'll move on to questions and things like that. So, but I think.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so Monica showed the survey earlier, and I think I'm in one of the smaller groups because I work with the spatial audio designer from Tom Ammerman, which I found to be really great for my workflow. And for those of you who don't know how it works, I can lead you through the process quickly. This is part of a project, and I always start mixing in stereo and arrange everything I want to have. Every sound gets messed with and gets placed in the right position, and then each of these tracks here on the left and all the sound effects and sound design elements, they all get this first plugin. It's the so-called send module. And oh yeah, now I messed with the configuration, so you see a little issue over here. It shouldn't be that bad, especially just because I want to show you how it works. So for example, here I think, what do we have here? Oh yeah, that's an angelic sound. Maybe we go down to, where do we have something that moves? Oh yeah, maybe here. These are the chains, I called them. The things, the blocks that are coming from above. And I go into this module and can just do the automations all here in this window. And you just go on right, so you don't need all the details, I guess. And get the sound moving to where you want to go. And I have one for the front, one for the back, because there's so many chains of blocks here. And then if you did that for each and every track, and you're happy with all the automations, they all come together in the mix module down here. This is quite a lot because a lot is going on in this thing. And yeah, let me see if we can. Yeah, and you basically see all the stuff moving around. I think we're having a small audio issue here, but you can still hear well enough, I hope, to see what's going on. And well, it's pretty easy to use, I find, and this is what I love when something is really easy to use. So on the left side, we are looking, so to say, from above. So this is like the room layout. You just have to imagine it being a circle and a dome. And this on the right side, you're looking from behind. So this is the height information here. The line in the middle is basically the floor. And if you are lucky enough to have speakers below the floor, you can also move the audio to that position. And you know, if you have a whole, if you have the money to do that, you can build a really cool place and play with the audio there as well. Yeah, so basically you arrange everything in this window, and then it comes together in this window. And when you're done and happy, you go to the export section down here. You set in and out points, and then you have to live export it. So you have to set the markers where you want to have them, and then let the project go from A to Z. And after that, you get a file. And that file can be sent to every dome that has the Spatial Audio Designer installed. And I have a lot of presets for different domes. All the domes I worked for. And this makes it actually pretty easy. Even if it's always better to go to the dome to test and to hear what it's supposed to sound like. But I found in my experience that the presets that I got from Tom for each and every dome work pretty well. So yeah, I think this is just a brief overview. This is the same thing I showed you before. It's just a little reel of projects we have done in the past. And I think we'll go into the details later. So thank you very much. Back to Monica.
Thank you so much, Johannes, and yeah, just all of our panelists. I think this has been a really, just great overview of some of the different ways some different audio designers approach looking at all of this stuff. So I think maybe we can all turn on our cameras now, and we can kind of, we're going to open this up as kind of more of a panel. I have some pre-prepared questions, but if anyone in the audience has questions as well for any of the panelists or all of the panelists, feel free to, I think you can put them in the chat. There's also the Q&A. I don't know, Ryan, which is best, but he'll help field some of that in the background there. Yeah, so again, thank you all so much for being here. Ryan says the QA is best. So if you have questions, ask them in the Q&A. And we'll make sure we can ask them for all of the presenters, and yeah, we can kind of weave them in with some of my questions as well. So happy to do that too. So I think maybe let's just start out. This is kind of a basic question, but why do you think immersive audio is important to support storytelling in full dome environments? Like, why should we care? I know we're all sound people, so we all care, but why should anyone else care?
Well, for me, the obvious reason is because the visuals are practically everywhere, so the sound should also be everywhere. That would be the obvious answer. Yeah. It's just an immersive medium, and the sound is as important as the visuals are, so it has to match.
It's even more important sometimes.
Exactly. Thank you.
No, but I mean, like the small excerpt that we saw of the animation film, there was one. The directors were great for that. They had something like 30 seconds of pretty much full black, but the sound, I mean, getting it in binaural, what you heard, it doesn't do it justice, but in the dome, it's very efficient because you feel the characters are moving around and you don't see them, but you hear them and you know pretty much where they are in the space. And that's I would say one of the reasons to work that way, and also because of the sheer size and the enveloping type of projection that you have to have some sound that matches that.
I think also I really like to think about sounds in space as characters themselves somehow, even if they're musical elements in the space or just Foley or other types of sounds. I really like to think about these sounds dialoguing or in constant dialogue with each other within the space, and also, of course, with the visual elements. But yeah, I think it's a constant play and push and pull with how these elements are going to construct the story or develop the story further, using the space as a main element I would say as a main platform for composition and for, you know, creative development of these stories that we're trying to tell with the dome. But yeah, I think it's all about having exploring with new technologies that help us just get further with the way we perceive sound and visuals and the way we kind of like interact with those as well, because that's what it's all about, no? Make it a little bit more interactive and immersive.
Right. And also I think it's maybe it is the way our brain works. When we go through life, we hear stuff three-dimensionally. It comes from everywhere. So in a dome, we have the chance to use that ability of our brain and replicate it like in a movie format. The way that we can't do it on a flat screen because we experience the dome like we experience the real world. We see everywhere and we hear everywhere. And I think this is a huge potential and a huge chance.
And also vision is not full 360. Hearing is 360. You hear stuff from all around you, but your vision is limited to a certain, you know, you have to turn your head around to see what's going on. You don't have to turn your head around to hear what's going on. So
right.
That also.
And Benoit, you'll appreciate this. I think I was talking to Sebastian, and he was advocating for the importance of sound in dome, and he was like, "Oh, you know, he's like, I see it as like, you know, the visual is like 60%, the audio is 40%." I was like, I think you need to flip that.
That's well, you know, sound gives weight and substance to a lot of images. It's really different, and I'm very fortunate to have been working with people that felt that a good sound design. And I don't mean the music part. The music part is handled by somebody else, but you know, having the chance to do some experimenting and having a rich soundscape is I've been very fortunate to have those people pushing for that, and also, you know, saying, well, we need more, we need something better, we need something more in your face and immersive.
Right.
Kind of going off. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Johannes.
no. I just wanted to say that I see it exactly like that. The way I experienced the last 15 years of Dome life is that all the storytellers had to learn how to produce for this medium, and they had to learn how long can a scene be, when do I have to cut, how do I have to cut. It was all about the visuals, and the sound fell off for a few years, and I feel like it's catching up now slowly because the importance becomes known a little more and more people see it like this. But I think we still need to push everyone a little further.
Yeah, I think in general, you know, every you know, we're a visually driven kind of people, you know, that's we I think are in that way. However, it's, you know, yeah, sound is something that is going on all the time for us. And it's like, we can't actually turn our ears off. And so it's one of those things that you kind of in your brain, you maybe stop noticing as much, but you notice when it's not there, or you notice when it doesn't sound right and when it's bad. And so it's I think just in general, it's like, I mean, if anyone's done any film classes, it's like with the sound, and it's like, and they just take the sound out of the film. It's an amazing kind of experience to watch how, or just put different sounds into, a film, how it completely changes the emotion or the feeling of, the piece and kind of what we're doing. So
Yeah, that was coincidentally my bachelor project. When I studied music, we built a room and we had the same scene played with different audio types, and those people were all like completely caught off guard how much that does.
yeah.
Hmm.
So kind of going off this conversation a little bit, do you think 5.1 is enough? Or what are the advantages and disadvantages of working with a higher channel count? Because I know 5.1 has kind of become the standard in Dome, but it's not like, is it ideal?
I mean, we're cutting ourselves from you don't have height, which is something that I think is very important in Dome. It's like I was saying, it's not the best format, but it's the most universal format. So you end up using that, but that's not the best that takes the full advantage of what you have in terms of theaters, a lot of them anyways. I know that when the Planetarium in Montreal buys shows that were made outside of their own production facilities, we get, which is not even a 5.1, it's more like a 4.1+1, because the center channel has the VO in it, and that's pretty much it. So you open it up, and I adapt some of those shows to work in the Planetarium there, but it's not as satisfying. I mean, the spatial thing is not really happening because you don't have the whole, you're not using the whole speaker possibilities, you're just spreading it out, and it's I mean, it works a bit, but it's not very precise. When we mix some stuff directly in the vicinity, it's a whole new ball game. It's because now you take advantage of all the sound sources that you can use there. And I'm wondering about portability with, like Monica and Alejandra, do you move your shows around, or are you condemned to work and you elaborate and develop the show in one space and you have to show it there? Is it how do you go elsewhere, or do you ever go elsewhere?
Do you mean with Dome or with the particular multi-channel systems that each of us uses for our practice?
Well, like when you design a show and you design it in a particular space, and then you're invited to go elsewhere, what's your mean of transporting it? How do you make that transition?
I mean, in this case, for 4D sound, for example, the space we have in Monum is it's a 48.9, so we have 48 speakers and 9 satellite speakers and 9 subwoofers. So basically we offer a lot of residencies to artists, and when they come in, they of course mix for this particular space with this particular channel count and multi-channel system, this very specific number of speakers and all these things. And of course that poses a challenge when the artist wants to go to a certain museum and they have a smaller system, no? So in our case, it's all within the software. You can set up custom, you can design custom setup files for different spaces. But this is something with 4D Sound. It's like something we need to ask them to do, but to downsize, for example. But when they have this custom setup file designed for a specific space, they go there and they mix on site. You basically have to adapt a little bit of the piece that you composed for for example, for our multi-channel system, you have to adapt it to this new space because there's no way it's going to be super extremely accurate, no, because obviously it's less speakers, so you really have to kind of like understand the space, of course, like the new space where you're mixing at. And yeah, it's I think it's I spoke about it a little bit in my introduction. It's never the same, for example, when you're mixing in binaural in your computer in the commodity of your house rather than going to the dome and mix there, no, there are always things that change, that it's never the same. For me, I find that binaural is great for this, but it's never the same to actually go there and mix on site and get the chance to actually compose in that specific space, no? Which for me was not an option when I did iSpread. Since it was a project with my university, with the University of the Arts in Berlin and the Planetarium in Berlin, we didn't have the chance to mix there. And the only thing we did was go there and listen to what we had done in our computers or in our home studios or in uni, you know? So it was, there's always kind of like something to be worked on and I feel like it's, adaptations and translations basically from one multi-channel system to the other. And it happens all the time when going to different planetarium festivals. They all ask for different things as well, different tech requirements, different, 5.1, no, ambisonics is better, okay, let's do it. And like, you always have to translate constantly your work into other setups and other systems, I feel like.
I mean, I can kind of, again, relate to some of that. So a lot of the stuff that I've done is more in the live performance context. And I think in, building some of these things over and over and then trying to take them to other places, it's like, I build a lot of, I build a lot of my own systems using Max MSP, which I know Alejandra mentioned, and Max, especially because I got into this in 2011 and it's like there weren't really, and we're working in a 15.1 surround system in Gates Planetarium, and it's like, there's no Pro Tools plugin for that. So at the time, we kind of, I got really into Max MSP, which is just, it's a, kind of, for those who don't know, it's like a graphical programming environment that allows you to kind of build, it does a lot of things, but, and in that too, there's like a lot of different communities that have created different algorithms for being able to do, spatial audio. I'd say that kind of one of the biggest ones in that community right now is Spat, and that's coming out of Earcam. And the Spat tools, they have all, it has like, and I think there's there's some more commercial versions now with like Spat Revolution, and there's also the holophonics kind of through Amadeus. It's a kind of a project they're working on. It's like more hardware solution, and it's the thing that I like about that is you have different algorithms that you can kind of choose from. So I always am like kind of proponent of, I feel like the different spatialization algorithms are like kind of just choosing a different EQ or a different, they all have, a different type of compressor. They all have a different type of sound to them. And it's like certain algorithms work better for different sounds. And so I like to mix and match a lot. And then build. But I'd say like maybe the key feature of a lot of those is that a lot of those algorithms is that you can just upload kind of a speaker, kind of the map of your speaker array, and it'll decode to that speaker array. Now, some algorithms decode to different speaker arrays better than others. So, you can kind of, once you kind of get a handle on that, you can kind of understand a little bit better. So like ambisonics, I think, we've talked about a little bit, and it has certain features that I think are really good and then certain features that aren't great. But it is really easy to decode to different environments. It's not going to necessarily sound exactly how you want it in every single environment. But as far as being able to move stuff around, I think you can move stuff around fairly easily with like something like ambisonics, or there's also like a K nearest neighbor algorithm that I think is really good, or VBAP, which can be really good as well. So kind of just depending on, what you're trying to do and what sort of sounds you're trying to access. But yeah, so I kind of have built systems that I still have to go in and like, quickly modify to be able to get it to do things. But yeah,
But-
so.
So this is something that I actually really like about this spatial audio designer that I'm using, because this is something that makes it really easy to go from one place to another. If you have the preset and they just have their system and not the how's it called, Q player, you can just say, okay, I need to do it for Planetarium in Berlin, or for some planetarium in the United States, and you just throw the preset in, and the file that I talked about earlier that comes out after you export, you can just throw it into the preset, and then you have the exact configuration of the other dome. This makes this part very easy, and if they have the Q player, I think it's called, you just send the original file and they just play that. And if it's not if there is not a preset or nothing else available, then you can also just ask for their grid where the speakers are and stuff, and you can easily build that. Like you said, Monica, you can easily build that in the array creator, and then it should work. I didn't try that much because luckily most of the venues had presets or the Q player. But yeah, this is really good. And to come back to the original question, is 5.1 enough? I would say it's enough in a way that a small car is enough, or a small apartment is enough. I mean, it gets the job done. It is you hear from multiple directions, but I feel like the spatial audio is the luxury version of that. Is if you can afford it as a venue, you should definitely do it. But I've been, for example, I think Ben, you might know this, the Satosphere in Montreal.
Yep.
And this is like years and years ago. We went there with our first show with Chaos and Order, and I think they had built themselves a 5.1 system, but with multiple speakers in for every channel. And this was, to be honest, one of the best sound systems I have ever heard to this day. So it can be enough if you do it right.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but still, spatial sound is of course, it gives everything so much more room to breathe. Every instrument can be in a certain place. The music, the instruments, and the sounds, they don't fight for the speaker real estate, so to say. So of course it's better, but you can push 5.1 to a certain degree.
So I think the Satosphere had like a 39.4 channel system, but it was like over 130 speakers, but then clustered into like 39.4 channels. And I think they could virtualize a 5.1 sort of out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we came there with our 5.1 mix, and they distributed it like to their system, and it was incredible.
So we will say that that's definitely more than a 5.1 system. But you could play a 5.1 mix in it and it'll sound
exactly.
Great.
Yeah. Sorry, that was unclear.
Again, there's a difference between omni and unidirectional venues, because a lot of I don't know the proportion of planetariums, how much of them are unidirectional, meaning that they resemble more a regular theater, cinema theater, than what we have in Montreal and some other places where you have people sitting all around the room. So 5.1 in a directional works better than in an omni environment, because the way it's designed is to bring you more towards the front than an actual total immersion experience.
All right, we have a few questions from the audience, so I might start kind of going through some of those, and then we can kind of come back to some of the other questions I have. I know Sol Reza, she mentioned in the chat that she struggles a lot with audio dropouts, even though computers and audio interfaces and software are kind of getting more powerful, and kind of what is, like, is it something we all struggle with? Or, kind of is it, she was asking, is it just me? Or is it something we don't talk about enough among those of us working in the field? And, kind of what are some of the different things that, you can think about to kind of avoid software clicks and things?
Well, it is getting
Technical.
better. Yeah, it's getting better as the computers are the portable ones are getting more and more powerful. That's what I use, but that's also what kept me away from Spat Revolution. I was hoping to mix the animation thing that we just saw with that. I started, but it was too much. I needed two computers. It was a total headache. I didn't have the resources or the budget to build a new workflow, and I ended up not taking that route. But it has something to do with power, obviously. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, and no, you're not the only one. To whoever asked that question, I experienced that as well, especially if I do bigger projects. Like I'm working on a Planetarium show right now, and every time I get close to the finish line of a project, if like in Germany we have shows that are like 50 minutes, 55 minutes long, and it gets more and more and more, and the project gets bigger, and yeah, I end up freezing instruments. I end up looking for every inch of power I can find on the computer. But it was fine for a while, but the problem is that although the computers are getting more powerful, all the software developers and plug-in developers and everyone, they also want to use that power to give you better instruments or better software. So it not exactly equals out, but it is not that much more power that you can use, because if you use the newest stuff, then also that uses a lot of this power.
And you keep everything live, I guess, Johannes, up until the end. You don't want to render or bounce some stuff to free out some resources.
I sometimes do that, but then again, like you said, you keep getting updates, and you have to change stuff around and move stuff around, and then you have to go back to the previous of the previous version. And yeah, especially in this case, not everything is done yet, so I'm not exactly sure how the timing is going to be and what the look is going to be and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a compromise. Sometimes I do, sometimes as long as I can, I keep it live.
Yeah. And you're a portable computer, or you use a desktop?
I've been using desktop, and so that was a PC, and now I've switched to Mac, and it's a portable one because, for example, I can take my project and just plug it into a dome and play my spatial audio live, like here in Münster, the city I'm based. I did that. We did a demo show for them, so I could just take the laptop, go there, and plug it in through a Dante card, and they just could play it live, and I could hear if it sounds good, and I could change it live, what I need to be changed. So for that reason, I like to work with a laptop, but yeah, it's it doesn't make life easy always.
So I'm constantly finding that breaking point. And then you dial back a little bit. You're like,
Right.
okay.
Exactly.
All right, that's too much. It can't handle that. And especially with like the new machines coming out, I'm just like, ooh, like I could do so much more. And then it's like, okay, that's where it breaks.
Exactly.
We'll dial back. And I had a weird one this summer where it was like, I updated, like everything was working fine, and then you update, and then it was just like all the things, like I couldn't push it as hard as I was anymore, and I was like, "What is going on?" No.
Same problem here. Everything was working fine. Then did some some updates, and now, yeah, back to square one, trying to figure out what's
Damn.
going on.
Yeah, it's super annoying. That happened to me as well with Pro Tools, actually. Pro Tools was like my main tool for a lot of years, especially for post-production for film, audio post-production. And I remember I updated my Mac OS system, and it stopped being compatible with the version of Pro Tools that was out there at the moment.
Yeah.
Like it had not followed up with like Mac new version, and it was going to be a couple of months until Pro Tools catched up with the new version of the software. And it was the only DAW I used at a time. It was my primary work tool, so I had to find alternatives because, yeah, the software was just not coming out soon.
So yes, Sol, you are not alone. We all feel your pain. Part of the pain of this world, for sure.
Yeah, Pro Tools
We have a question from Karen to Neha. What style of movies do you have most fun scoring or mixing for?
Oof. For me, it's experimental. Like I love experimental film. I love doing really poetic stuff, like really I would say, yeah, experimental film is my favorite type of stuff to film score to and do the sound design too, because I feel like I have a lot of creative freedom, always of course under the supervision and direction of the writers and the director. But I really feel like it gives you a lot more space to kind of like go out there and explore a lot of stuff with sound. And yeah, I think even my own dome project is it's super experimental and very much on the artistic side, and like yeah, that's it for me, I think.
Well, doing animation is really fun. I don't get to do that a lot in the dome. I would like to do more experimental stuff, but it's a matter of what's being asked of you. I do a lot more experimental stuff in my regular film work, and not as much as in the dome. But yeah, every project has its own challenges and also opportunities to bring out and develop a language or a new sound approach. So yeah.
I think for me is also a mixture of stuff. I would love to do animation actually. I never did a really like a animation one. And by the way, Ben, I love that Total Eclipse movie. I think I saw that at the IPS last year or
Yeah.
Fulldome Festival or something.
Cool.
Yeah, that was really great, and the sound is great, of course. Especially in the dome back there, it was a great thing. I would love to do stuff like that, but I also like love the experimental stuff because it gives you so much creative freedom, and you can explore everything. Like the stuff I do with Rocco, for example. It's not completely experimental, but for Impossible Space, we just decided to do one track, just be in a soundscape, and not compose a song or something like that for this. And to be able to just work with sound design with little sounds popping up here and there, that was really, really fun. But then also I like to do kid shows and stuff like that because you can go different ways in that time. You can just go and have some fun with the music and with the sound and everything.
Cool. All right. Next question is from Tim Barry. He says, "Thank you all. Inspiring." And then the survey results noted more accessibility to facilities. Johannes mentioned getting into the dome to listen. Benoit mentioned reflections, and just kind of more thoughts on facilities. What are things that maybe facilities could do or could think about in kind of putting their systems together that would make it easier and for audio people and also kind of more accessible for audio people?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that standards would help.
Yeah.
Like you know, if you can just rely on a venue to have a certain way to plug in, or if they use the same system than the other plugins, the other venues, that would help tremendously. And then also, I think I still notice a certain fear of spatial audio from some people that run venues, especially here in Germany. There are some audio guys working there that are not really trained, or they just are a little bit afraid of using it, even if they have all the possibilities, and still they fall back on using just a 5.1 mix because it's easier and what they are used to. So that would also help, like if the people are I don't want to say more qualified, but if they could see that it's
Open-minded.
not, yeah, like more open-minded. Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you want to work in the dome, you have to be ready to work night shifts, because the rest of the time it's open for the presentation of whatever's being shown at that moment. And for an early bird like me, it's a bit it's a bit of a tough one. But you know, end of projects, the last 2 weeks of our project, in between revisions and mixing nighttime, it's pretty much 18 hours, 16 hours days, because you edit in the morning, and then you go and you mix at night, and you come back and you do revision, and you know, it's that process. So it's pretty intense. The last it would be nice to have something that we could access in longer hours and easier hours, because you know, I don't mix. I tried placing some stuff at home, and I get into the dome, and we have to redo it pretty much, because it's not as accurate. It's not happening. You really have to be there to be precise on what's going on. So yeah.
Alejandra, did you have anything you want to add, or?
I think it's just literally what just Ben said right now. It's just getting the chance to work on site and mix on site. That's what was most important for me with my project. I think it's just you have a very limited time frame where you can actually get to work there and listen to your piece there. So yeah, get some more proper time frames to work on site. And yeah, it would be nice that they could allocate some time for the artist to, well, if possible, no, to mix there as well. Yeah.
That would be great. I fear, though, this is this is a dream and a utopia, because a lot of the venues, they need to make money, and so I don't, except for some planetariums that have a studio that replicates the sound of the dome, maybe a little bit. I think it's for many people, for many venues, it's kind of impossible to do that.
But that's kind of an interesting thought, though, Johannes. There is just this. Maybe there's a way to do just like a virtualization of the sound of the dome that you could then have kind of more that would be able to, you could mix for it through like headphones, or I know there's, I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with Virtuoso, but it's a plugin that Jungkook Lee came out with, and it does kind of virtualization of loudspeakers for headphones. And so you can do like kind of it's trying to more create kind of that sense of mixing for loudspeakers, but kind of more through your headphones. So maybe there's something like where you could virtualize domes and like the sound of the dome and the speaker array for your headphones to get it a little bit, you know, kind of closer.
Does it have head tracking? If you move your head around, you
Yes, yeah, I think
Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some stuff you can do with that for sure. But yeah, that could be, you know, definitely an interesting space to look at. And I guess so kind of continuing, we have a few questions here. talking about standards. I'm going to kind of read two of these and then we can kind of talk about that. So it says, seems the number of speakers used in dome playback varies from one to the other. Are there some standards used for the number to be employed, or is there standards you might recommend? And then today, what is the way to standardize dome mixes that are compatible with the different approaches to planetarium sound systems that you consider most relevant? So maybe we can kind of touch on some, what are some potential standards you think might be useful, and what do you have recommendations or thoughts, or is that kind of up for other people in the community to come up with?
If it wasn't so expensive and so closed, Dolby Atmos would be something interesting to look into, because it has a lot of what we're aiming for in a way. But yeah, it's I don't foresee it really, but that's something that could be.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking because, like, by now many domes have installed their system now, and it was a huge investment. And I guess in the near future they wouldn't want to invest in a new standardized version. I don't see that coming. But what helps is the stuff that I'm working with, the presets for the domes, because that works really good. Like, I have that one file. It comes kind of from the other direction. It's not a standard for the dome, but it is working in most of the domes. So I can just spit out a preset for this and for that and for every dome, basically. And that most of the time works surprisingly well. So it's a little bit of a workaround, because I think the other way is not that realistic.
It's actually the strength and the weakness of these spaces is that they're different, but there's also experimental, and that's what we're looking for in a way. So I guess that's why each vicinity makes some choices based on the level of experimentation that they think they'll have in their what they're showing. Like SAT is very experimental, but a lot of regular planetariums are pretty much just a dome that is inclined that way, and it's more like a very wide cinema experience. So they 5.1 for them works just well because of the way that it's designed. So
The answer is we have no idea.
we would love to. We're open to suggestions.
Right.
Yeah, I think, kind of in my thoughts around this, I like to think of it more as maybe suggestions than standards. And it's like, maybe there's some suggestions we can come up with, especially when it comes to if you are building a new venue or you are updating your audio system, what are potential suggestions that we as the audio community could kind of come together and, present. And then, and then I think on the preset side, or the kind of the side of like, well, a lot of these algorithms now can decode to like a lot of different spaces and a lot of different types of speaker arrays. So maybe there's something there as well, where it's kind of a combination of, and I think, Johannes, you're talking about spatial audio designer. I think that's been a lot of Tom Ammerman's kind of, pitch is, how do you, kind of decode to these different spaces
Right.
from, I mean, he's using a little bit more of a stereo kind of approach to the decoding, but, it's still kind of that element of how do you move between spaces that are not standardized.
Right.
Yeah. Benoit, did you have something? I think you were going to say something. Okay. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to go back to some of the questions I have. What are some of, so I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the tools and technologies. Like maybe we could kind of talk a little bit I mean, we saw each of and everyone's DAWs that they're working with, and talked a little bit about some of the plugins. But are there any plugins that you kind of haven't talked about, or kind of tools or techniques that you found particularly successful for kind of working in full dome spaces?
Well, for me, it's basically this was my I started working at the Fraunhofer Institute first with a spatial sound wave system they developed. This was like years ago, and this was resulting in like going to the dome and taking my mix and redoing the mix in every dome. This was also involving night shifts and stuff like that. For me, this spatial audio designer is really the most helpful tool in going to domes and mixing there, in preparing a mix for a dome, in doing automations. It's not perfect. It has some downsides. I think it's missing some knobs, and especially because you have to do a live export. And we talked about the audio, the cutting out. At times, you have to be really careful about that. And it's still not working for the Apple Silicon version. So you have to open it with Rosetta. I think they're working on that, but I found this to be the thing that helps me the most and makes my life the most easy.
When you mean live, you mean you're not able to bounce what's going on? You really have to do a full playback from beginning to end.
Yeah.
To render. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm not going out through Noendo. I'm going out through the system that listens, the SAD plugin that listens to the whole mix, and it saves all the automations as the song plays.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I think the one I stuck to, kind of like, it's the IEM plugin suite, which basically it's super nice because it's open source. So it's not something that's not really accessible for people to download and experiment with. It's open source, so you can just download the suite, and it includes an ambisonic plugin, like I think a couple of them, up to 7th order ambisonics. So it's nice because it's actually, I find it quite easy to use, like for beginners, for example. I don't know, maybe not, but I feel like I was a beginner when I started using it, and it was not as complex as I imagined it to be. So it's nice because it includes, like what I showed, I think is a granular encoder. So it's nice because it allows you to do granular synthesis, and I mean, which is something that's nice when you're doing spatial sound. And yeah, I think this suite is super cool. It also has a delay. I'm checking my session right now. Like it's the AIDA decoder. It has an energy visualizer. It has a stereo encoder as well. So it's nice because it allows you to also kind of monitor, and it even has a spatial compressor. So yeah, I would recommend this suite for people who are just kind of like starting in this spatial sound exploration with domes, and in general. Yeah, that's the tool that I used and I still use for doing ambisonics.
I'm gonna second IEM. They're great plugins for sure. Definitely, if you're wanting to work with ambisonics, make it super easy. There's the Spatial Media Labs. I'll post a link in the chat. They have a really great Reaper template that you can use with the IEM plugins that you can just download. And then they also have another one for then being able to render ambisonics into Dolby Atmos using some different free tools as well. Benoit, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I guess I experimented with a bit with the Dear VR, and also sound particles as something that you can use to, and also the cargo cult spanner. But I guess the thing that made my life the most the easier in the last couple of years is Pro Tools opening up to something wider than 7.1, when they went to integrated Dolby Atmos. It really helped me to build a new way of working that was more satisfying without using a lot of external stuff. Trying to keep it as we were talking about resource management. Well, that's also something that's, if you don't have a ton of plugins, you're managing your resources a bit better, I think.
Okay, so Sound Particles is awesome. Really, really fun for creativity. Dear VR, actually, they just got bought by Sennheiser, and now all their plugins are being released for free.
Yeah, you have to check those.
Fun things to note. Okay, so we're kind of coming up on the end of our time. We've got maybe about like 8 minutes left. I think I want to ask, I think maybe I'll ask one more question, and then maybe Ryan can kind of wrap up. So I think I'm going to ask this one of just about like what are some kind of on the creativity side. So like we talk about like tools and technologies, but on the creativity side, what techniques have you found successful in working? Especially, I think with Fulldome, it's unique because you are working with this kind of visual, this very, very large visual in space. So what are some kinds of creative techniques that you found that have helped to create a holistic audio design that kind of move with the visual and support the visual?
Well, if I may, it's not that different from my perspective on the rest of the stuff that I do. It's like I said, it's more when you get into the mix, that's where it happens, and this is where everything makes more sense. But the creative side, I mean, illustrating animation or live action in the regular format or in the dome, I mean, it's pretty much the same process for me, since I'm not dealing with that much experimental stuff.
For me, in a way, it's like what helps me the most, I guess, is to think about if it's my project, if it's a project that I'm developing and I'm the kind of like the lead creative voice in there, I would say just I ask myself the question, what do I want to say? What do I want to express, and how to build up a dramaturgy into doing that, into saying that specific thing, no? And yeah, I think this is a very important thing. It also has to do with what I was saying in the beginning about storytelling. How can you build up this energy and these interactions between the different sound objects that you have in order to create a specific environment where your audience is going to be submerged, no? To think about, yeah, what can you do to kind of like guide people through this particular story, you know, or narrative, or not. It can also not be a story. It can be something completely open-ended and just no. But like, yeah, for me, what helps me a lot is to kind of like think about these specific things and how to kind of like build up from there, and yeah, think about how can you really take advantage of the space to tell a story and to kind of like support the visuals also. Yeah.
Right. And I think where it all starts is with your own inspiration. Like when you see something, how would you love it to sound, and how do you get what you want out of from here to the screen? This is the imagination is what starts it all, and then after that, I think what helps me most, and I know that I'm in a unique situation, but that I can work this closely together with someone that does the visuals is always very, very helpful. That I can, because I love that the unity of audio and visuals, and to be able to really go into the other world of the video and get an understanding of that, and even being able to twist something and adjust something to something that I composed, this makes it, in the end, I think, in this very unique situation, a convincing end product, because it is really one thing, the video and the audio. Yeah, but I know that this is probably not possible for everyone. So if you have the right imagination to go at something, and if you hear the sound in your head, you just have to find ways to get that sound from here to the screen.
Yeah, and also another thing that I would say helps a lot sometimes is to find references as well. Like if you have a very specific type of sound texture of a song that you love from an artist or something like that, that is also it's good to know your taste and what you like in a sound piece and in a visual piece as well. And yeah, to have some references is always valid, and it's always a nice way to find inspiration in what other people have done already, and to kind of like find new ways of kind of creating new stuff, no? But yeah, references are always like good to have, no?
That's true. And also just keep playing, is not losing that, sounds maybe a bit cheesy, but the inner child inside of you that just wants to play and connect something that doesn't seem like it's gonna connect, but then it does all of a sudden. And then you just keep playing, and suddenly it makes click, and then you have to be able to catch that very moment and go from there. And yeah, that helps me most of the times.
And I would say just like a last thing, because it's always when working with sound, it's always hard to describe sounds. When I worked in an audio post-production studio in Foley, I always found it super hard to tell the Foley artist, I wanted it to sound like this. And I would always allude to a visual thing. Like I wanted to sound soft, or I wanted to sound, I don't know, like something always that alluded to a metaphor, to a visual metaphor, no? So it's kind of hard to find the language to describe the sounds that you want most of the time, because there's really not a language for it. So you always have to go to the visuals, no? So it's also part of it. Like if you find that like it helps you to kind of like describe the sounds that you want and write them down, and that also helps a lot, because there's kind of like this association between, I don't know, it has to do with the language, but I think, yeah, that also helps.
I just want to thank all of you for such an amazing conversation. This was very interesting for me, so I hope it was interesting for everyone else as well. But I thank all of you for participating today. This is, again, yeah, been great. But I think we're at time, so I'm gonna bring Ryan back up and let him kind of close us out.
Wow, what a feast for the ears. My goodness. Let's give him some love. Put in those digital reactions. There's a little heart there, I think. Yes, amazing job, Monica, and the entire panel, sharing your wit and your wisdom. And man, just so excited to have all of you here capturing this moment in time of the continuing landscape that is changing. And I'm guessing in a year we'll rewatch this and we'll be like, oh my gosh, we didn't know about Snuggles, the new app that makes everything great. So who knows where it will come, but or where it will go. But I just want to thank and give a lot of credit to Monica Bowles putting this entire conversation together. And then, of course, our three incredible panelists. So round of applause for all of you. And yeah, if you enjoyed hanging out, having this conversation, being a part of this conversation, I want to invite you to our next Fulldome Forum, which will be taking place May 15. It will be highlights from Dome Fest West. And if you're asking for some reason what Dome Fest West is, well, and what are the highlights that are going to be coming from it? Well, Dome Fest West is the whole reason we've put together a lot of these conversations. It is the community that we are building. And this year, our big event is taking place at the beginning of next month, beginning of May. We invite all of you to come to Boulder the future home of the Sundance Film Festival. Come in there, see how cool it is before the Sundance comes and takes it all over. Monica knows, she lived there for a while, and yeah, there's so many cool things coming. But we invite you, if you want to have more conversations like this, there's a lot of great panels and different conversations happening around not just the film screenings, but also common industry issues as part of our Fulldome Forums, conversation panels and roundtables. So come check it out. But that does not at all diminish from just the huge, amazing conversation we heard. So one last time, claps for everyone. And then we're going to let you all go. We are a few minutes over, so thank you for sticking around. And
I think if you're
go ahead,
still
Monica.
here, Ryan, this is recorded and it will be posted later for people who want to rewatch or that didn't get a chance to be here. So
That is correct. That is correct. So yeah, it will be on our YouTube as soon as I can get to that post. As a whole panel of post experts knows, it takes hours sometimes to do the smallest things.
It does.
Anyway. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening. If you're in Europe, you have to drink for all of us. Requirement.
bedtime. It's party time, right? Yeah, Johannes, go out to the clubs. Yeah,
Every night, every single night.
All right. Awesome. We'll get to it. Thank you for everyone, or thank you to everyone, and have a great.
And thank
rest
you,
of your day.
Ryan. Thanks for giving us a platform to do this and talk about the importance of audio and domes.
Oh, dude, it is a super important part. I like the better than 50%. It is. You can turn off the dome and people, if there's still sound, they'll be okay. But if you turn off the sound and there's still visuals in the dome, people will be like, something's wrong. So anyways, I don't know. There's something there.
It's true. I said that many times. That's very true.
For the third time, we're saying goodbye. All right. See you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.